focusing on that. Here they are, and as you can see on screen, it's gonna be branded against Melodius, and we have been informed that Darwin won the die roll. Big decision here.
Yeah, I think this die roll is going to be absolutely massive in the strategy. Being able to see Darwin's style of deck, you can see straight away that he's starting off with a Luba Jester, which does mean, even with the name below it saying branded, that this is going to be a branded Despia deck. Now, the one thing that is absolutely amazing when I did see Darwin's structure deck is deck is the fact that there are no hand traps in Darwin's deck.
That's it. Wow, Darwin stopped by just one effect. Veiler, quite unfortunate. As you're saying, he doesn't really have that much non-engine, so you would expect him to be able to push, but that's not the case. And the one-off part of Prosperity as well to follow it up.
Yeah, so at this exact moment in time, obviously it's a bit unknown what Andrew is currently on, but I suppose these top 6, unless we're going to see 6 non-engine cards, is going to reveal exactly what the opponent is on.
Yeah, and it is really a premium card because the Melodius deck has 6 absolutely powerhouse spells in first movement solo, and Ostinato, not quite the case, but still the deck is revealed.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be taking the Ash Blossom off of that one. Yeah. So going to be able to get one of the Pendulum Scales. Yep. And
obviously on the one hand, you might be wondering, okay, my opponent passed, they might be holding some interruptions, but at the same time, you know, it's branded and usually they don't really play many, so it's, you know, it's an interesting spot. But here comes the first movement solo, one of the best cards by far in the deck.
Yeah, the incredible, as you mentioned earlier, the incredible spell cards that the Melodius strategy have available to them are incredible, including something like Ostinato, which is obviously the ideal spell you like to start with. But first movement solo is not a bad alternative. Being able to get straight into Soprano, which is going to be able to set up some fusion plays later on, something that we weren't able to see in turn 1 from Brandon, unfortunately. But as you mentioned, Andrew is probably under the bit more of a cautious to spend on what type of hand traps his opponent might have, considering it did just go with an Aluba being interacted with.
That's going to be the case, and now we see the refrain that was added from Pot of Prosperity. Drawing is really not much of an issue, and I mean, in general, what do you think of just Melodius as a deck in the current format?
Yeah, I think Melodius really kind of surprised me that it dipped off as much as it did. I feel that a lot of dedicated players will still be able to pilot it correctly. And I feel that we're definitely in this open state of a format where we know Riziel, we know Malice, we know Blue Eyes are going to feature, but these are probably the perfect opportunities for decks like Melodius to kind of come back into it.
Indeed. And when we take a look at the 22% of Riziel in the field, Detonator has to be the #1 concern. And Aria, the Melodius Diva, just works perfectly against it. So it is one of the main reasons why this deck lines up really well against Riziel. Not going to be quite the case here, but I mean, for now, we see one of the key cards in the deck, Melodius Concerto, the pretty much only one of the few cards in the game that allows you to fusion summon from Pendulum Scales as well. And Andrew is going to make the most out of it, bringing down one of these key cards in the Baka.
Yeah, being able to utilize Baka, but then on top of that as well, also being able to replay your Pendulum Scales just allows you to advance the game state so much more. The fact of the matter is that we still have Soprano on the board that hasn't even attempted to use the effect yet. We're still being able to kind of slowly edge away towards Darwin to see if there is any form of interaction coming from that hand. And as you slowly start to navigate through those possible periods where you could be stopped by specific hand traps, you're then starting to open up a little bit more and possibly even work to try and settle out the duel 1 right here, right now.
Yeah, you can see Andrew really trying to figure out how to play this as safe as possible, if he even has an option to just push for game altogether. So the deck can push a lot of damage.
I feel you do need to be very, very careful because, as you say, trying to navigate through the hand traps is one thing, but then also trying to make sure you're always trying to play a mind game to read what your opponent may have. So if they've already started off with one starter, and it looks like the first hand trap we're going to be seeing activated is the Bestial Magnamute.
A premium one, again, one of the most popular cards in the main deck across all of our duelists in the 40+% range. So for a good reason. but it doesn't seem like Andrew is stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, I feel that the Magnamut is definitely going to put a spanner in the works, but we saw that there's just not very much has been committed to Andrew's from Andrew's hand as of yet. So we're still able to kind of present a field presence and still be able to work around even without Sofina. And that's just going to still show the power of what Melodious can actually still present. We still don't even know what if Andrew has any more hand traps that can back this end field up and kind of work around. We do know that Darwin is going to get the search of a dragon during the end phase if we are able to get there, as he has now declared, of course, the effect of the Magnamut after resolving the previous chains.
Obviously, when you look at a deck like Melodious, it's quite different from the top decks of the format, where you would typically see almost 15 one-offs in the extra deck. The boss monster, again, Baka, but usually you really try and end on Schuberta as well to provide some additional support. And let's just see what Andrew wants to go for. The area is set up, which is important. Yeah, and here comes Schuberta as expected. What a card.
Yeah, I feel that the fusion monsters are for the Melodious strategy here are going to be very well placed. Being able to utilize either banishing from the graveyard or, of course, piloting into the other fusion monsters, being able to go into the flowering can also provide you with the ability to maintain your field presence, technically like a small SP Little Knight-esque effect, in order to remove your monsters from the board to be able to play around something like a Nibiru if you wish to. But then also being able to take away the graveyard with the Schuberta can be very, very important, especially when you're trying to utilize some of the branded fusion monsters in order to extend your plays.
Yeah, we have attacked over the Magnamut, it seems. And that then in Memphis too, we just pendulum summon and pass. So not really too oppressive of a field from Andrew. And he's going to give his opponent a chance, because now the Magnamut resolves. We get into our engine, and we have a clutch draw off the top to try and unbrick this end.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how this develops. We know that we have the Aria on the board, on the field, as you've already mentioned. That's going to provide them with destruction, targeted protection, and can't be destroyed by battle. So it's going to make it a little bit harder for Darwin to be able to just aggressively storm forth his way across this board. Then we have the graveyard interaction off of the back of the fusion monster as well, can make it a little bit more difficult, especially if you are playing more bestials. But it looks like we're starting off with the Fallen of AIRPODS, and this is actually going to be a great interaction here, because being able to discard does provide Darwin with the ability to work its way into pretty much any of the fusion monsters, because you can use either a light attribute, a dark attribute, or of course just a monster from the extra deck to get into that all-powerful Mirror Jade.
And yeah, seems like Schuberta was used, and now he's thinking about which one to go for, asking maybe clarification on his opponent on what they could do further. And we could just see the Mirror Jade alongside yes, there he comes. Boss monster of the deck still provides so much utility.
Yeah, I think Mirror Jade is one of my favorite boss monsters to come out of a structure deck.
Yeah.
We all know how powerful the branded structure deck was in general, and it's also good to quite see the branded strategy being utilized now with only one branded fusion access to them. Just kind of the way they navigate around that lack can be very, very important.
Yeah, now you can see Darwin not too familiar with his opponent's deck, just asking, doesn't want to. Oof, and this is another additional piece of interruption that is quite good here, the Cartesia.
Yeah, so being able to add Cartesia to this board, to this field as well, is going to be very, very important. This is going to be allowing to set up another fusion summon, but also the fact of the matter is that Cartesia being a quick effect does allow it to play around certain forms of interaction if they are kind of activated a little bit prematurely.
And another one of those cards that will receive for the first time in the trading card game, an alternate version in Quarter Century Stampede. So if you're a fan of the branded deck, you're going to be happy about that set, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, and we've obviously been able to use Mirror Jade's effect to clear off the Aria, open up the door for the Albion in the graveyard, which we know will be able to fetch a branded spell during the end phase as well, which can be very, very important, whether you want to be going for something like branded in red to give you that activation during your opponent's turn, or of course branded fusion for a follow-up of the next turn as well.
And yeah, we're going to push even further, going for the Grand Guignol. We have an interesting target in our decks, which is that Ido, the Supreme Magical Force, a card that can shut down your opponent as when you give it to them, thanks to obviously going for the Albion Sanctifier. It pretty much says you cannot summon at all. So no matter the way. So.
Yep, Gimmick Puppet Light. I suppose Ido is a little bit more easy to navigate rather than an entire turn lockdown. It also looks like we're going to be sending Titaniclad. I do love Titaniclad, one of the original AIRPODS fusion monsters.
And now that we have, filtered through, we can send the Retribution or the Branded Fusion. And yeah, Branded Fusion. It is cycling a little bit more.
Yeah, Albion going back to the bottom of the deck to draw one more card. It puts Darwin's hand to 2 at this current moment in time. And we know that his opponent currently has, I believe, 2 cards in the hand and 2 Pendulum Scales. And there is a Droll and Lockbird.
I mean, not too efficient at the moment. And also I saw a trap card that I'm not going to quite reveal yet. But let me tell you that there is a reason why we sent that Branded Fusion there.
Yeah, this is going to be very, very interesting to see how this comes back. I feel that the side is going to be very important because depending on how much knowledge is revealed to Andrew through Darwin's plays and strategies, there are a lot of cards in Andrew's deck that he may not feel are necessary. So that might open up the space to be a bit more free with his side-in patterns and his side-in strategy. But I can't imagine anyone's going to be turning up to have a direct response to Branded. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how that one works out.
Definitely not. And I mean, regardless, this was impressive, to say the least, from Darwin, managing to navigate through a break turn 1 and then all of the field that his opponent assembled while, ending on this. Wow. Let's see if Andrew has any hope of staying in this or whether, Darwin comeback is real in this game. 1,
Ooh.
That's a good way to start.
That is a very good way to start. Branded Fusion before Branded Fusion.
Ostinato is there. Oh!
Retribution.
Retribution art drawn. Art set, rather, yeah.
Now, the one big thing about this is I believe if there is a second Ostinato, that can still be activated.
And here comes the trap I was referring to. We do have duplication, another way to access Branded Fusion. Although during our opponent's turn, it is just as good. And here goes the Ido.
Yeah, so this is probably going to work its way ideally into the Sanctifier Dragon to bring back the Ido, which is a very interesting strategy. It also gives you that ability to technically protect your Mirror Jade, because as it stands right now, Mirror Jade's effect is not live because it was used during Darwin's turn. If there is a way of getting that Mirror Jade off the field and then back onto it, the effect will be live again.
Yeah, this is very well execution by Darwin, making its best of all of these recurring effects, and then, as you have mentioned, going into Sanctifier.
So Sanctifier is going to revive Aluba to the field of Darwin and Ido to his opponent's field as well.
Yeah. I mean, all you need to read is really the first few 3 words. You cannot summon. What a field. And yeah, I think Andrew, unfortunately, unless he has some sort of way, let's call it a day. And game 1, after a long fight, duel goes to Dark. Here they are
Again, I would be absolutely amazed if Andrew does not decide to go first. You can't really afford for the IDO lock to be coming down. And it looks like that is exactly what's going to happen. You're praying to see a first movement solo or an ostinato in that opening hand. Can be massive to start presenting a field.
Oh, again.
Well, maybe we'll get one or the other.
Yeah.
Pot of Prosperity is always an interesting one. Do you decide to banish 6, depending on how desperate you need to see the card, or do you just stick at 3?
He did 3 the last game.
Correct.
But it seems like, no, it's
Yeah.
going for the full 6. So maybe a sign that his end is more on the weak side.
Yeah, I feel you're now at this point, though, with nothing left to really lose. You want to see, as long as you
Yeah.
maintain your core cards you're going to need from that extra deck, you try to see as many of those 6 as possible. There we go.
3
That's
was
what you
okay.
want. 3 was all you needed. There's the cross out, there's the Herald, and an infinite impermanence.
Interesting.
So this will be pretty interesting as to whether or not he feels he has enough and wants that bit of protection by taking the Herald of the Orange Light. Nope, straight for the Ostinato.
Yeah.
The temptation is too real. I suppose even if you already have a copy of Ostinato, it does kind of give you that ability to be a little bit more free.
Indeed. Playing through Ash Blossom, which, I mean, we might have seen on the Prosperity, but Darwin
There
is
we go.
pretty much giving a tell by putting his hands on the table. I mean, he's going to wait. He's on, just field the breaking spells rather than interruption. So, but I did see a good old friend from game 1 as well from Darwin. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I suppose this is quite freeing to be fair as an opponent of someone like Darwin. It's quite nice to be able to feel free and not need to worry about having to present a field. You can just go off and not need to hand trap check every now and then. But then on the flip side of that, you do need to keep it in the back of your mind that there could be some very powerful field breakers, as you've mentioned. And then what type of field breakers that the Brandish strategy could possibly be playing might allow you to adapt and dictate your play style. Regardless, starting off with Ostinato is probably one of the most ideal starters, if not the best starter for the Melodious strategy. So working its way around, trying to be able to navigate. I feel that we might be in a position for Andrew where he feels comfortable enough to continue to build his field as however he sees fit, trying to ideally end on the strongest end field from the Melodious plays as well.
Yeah, for now, the Soprano has resolved, and so he has both Fire Refrain in hand and on the field. And gonna set up both scales thanks to the couplet. Yeah, able to fusion summon once more with the concerto using the scales as well. I mean, it's somewhat similar to what we were seeing in game 1, but it is slightly better on his side, so it's looking promising.
Yeah, this is all without a normal summon as well. So there's still, it's always very important when you can hold back certain restricted facilities of the deck. So if you're able to save your normal summon for later on in the turn, that's quite a big factor that your opponent is always going to need to count on. Have they used their normal summon? Have they used their pendulum summon? Have they used an ostinato? And it's trying to tick these boxes off to make sure that if you do have an interaction, when you drop that interaction, you want it to be as impactful as possible. You want to ideally have it stop the turn. So if you already have that in the back of your mind that a normal summon has not been conducted, you need to try to figure out what else that normal summon could present.
And yeah, here comes the concerto. We've sent to the graveyard the aria, setting up access to it later on. And yeah, for now, Darwin not really interested in interacting.
Yeah, I think Darwin is well and truly in the zone from what we can see here. He knows what's going on. He probably already has his plays mapped out. He's just trying to... Any of the new cards that he didn't see in turn 1, he will probably show a bit more interest in, which is exactly what we're seeing here with the flowering.
Switching things around as in the previous game.
Yeah, the flowering kind of gives a very nice ability to be able to return cards from the field to the hand, up to the number of Melodious that you currently have on your field. So this could be very, very important to not only try and set up targeted and destruction or battle protection so that they can't just be run over, but also being able to set up. And it looks like Darwin has also opened up the Magnumut again.
Yes, there it is. I did mention good old friend was waiting there. It was quite impactful in the previous game. Let's see if it will be again.
Yeah, this is, as you mentioned earlier, how powerful the ARIA protection or how fretful it kind of sees from an opponent, because sometimes you might want to save it for one of the maestros to deal with that so that they don't constantly keep getting recursion or a soprano. But then being able to hit an ARIA that is providing that level of protection can still be as threatening to be used up on something like a Magnamut.
Ooh, and there comes the side deck.
Ooh,
That's big.
that is a very interesting hand from Darwin.
Yeah, I mean, Allure plus the Tri Brigade was premium, but
Yeah.
it's an interesting choice. I guess Allure also just makes sense instead.
We can imagine that in the end phase off of the Magnamut, you're going to be searching out a dragon. So getting rid of the Allure, as you called it, is very, very good. It just nets so much advantage, just being able to activate that with the Macoria as well.
Yeah, you don't leave much in the end. Obviously, they do have Cold Body Grave as a protection if they top deck something good, but it's looking quite promising. And yeah, I think we just pass. So we're gonna have a search, few options available, Lubellion or other bestials. Yeah, and here comes Albion.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, they're currently sitting on a Called by the Grave, branded in red, Macoria, and of course Albion, which will all be public knowledge to Andrew right now. And then it's just that one top deck card that will be unknown that could change it. Oof, okay.
Not quite what he was looking for, because the issue here is that the Albion can provide and turn the branded in red live by sending Albas. But then the Schuberta keeps in check the red, essentially. You can, and that's exactly what he's asking, I think, because it can just banish cards from the graveyard. So if you just wait for them to activate the red, you can deny it. And yeah. I'm gonna try and attack over it, it seems. Is that really gonna cut? It's
24.
24, I think, right?
Correct, yeah. Schuberta is 24.
But it can boost itself. Let me check.
Yes, it's only if it banishes from the graveyard. It gains 200 attack for each. So it can make itself stronger, but it's doing exactly what Darwin kind of wants, which means there's no... even though Schuberta will stay on the field, it still kind of presents...
Yeah.
I mean, it does use up Darwin's battle phase, but it still means that the Albion is semi-protected from being banished from that graveyard.
And yeah, this is exactly what's going on.
Okay, looks like he's going to continue with the attack, taking that small bit of life point damage, putting the Magnamut into the graveyard, open up the field. Maybe we're going to see a cheeky Kashtira Fenrir, but I highly, highly doubt that.
But yeah, now he has clarified that although he lost his Magnamut, the effect of Schuberta for the turn is gone. And so this Albion suddenly gets a lot better.
Correct. I believe there is still 3 unknown cards in Andrew's hand as well from the opening hand of 5. Because I think we've only seen Ostinato be played and the Talents. You would like to feel that there may have been some form of hand trap interaction, could have been held a little bit, and it looks like that draw off of Albion was a Lubellion. Absolutely incredible top deck, that one there. Depending on what, I believe there is a Saranir left in the deck, so there is another bestial that Darwin can present to the field.
But also, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting spot because the flowering is annoying, because otherwise you can also just use branded in red and not resolve the fusion summoning aspect, and you could have gone just normal summon Albats and use the effect, for example. But the problem is with the flowering, the Albats is also not premium at the moment. So yeah, let's see what he figures out.
Correct. So it looks like we're going to be using the Saranir to target either the Soprano or, of course, the Buckeye in the graveyard. This will then allow Saranir to summon to the field. Looks like we're going for the Soprano, which is quite an interesting choice, but it does make sense.
Does he have Beast? Let me check. No.
No.
Not quite. No targets for...
I suppose getting branded in Lost, correct? So you go for branded in Lost, so that would then allow your branded in red to resolve.
Let's see. Obviously, you can access that retribution for later on. And yeah, there he goes.
So utilizing branded loss is an incredible kind of staple, I would say, or like an absolute must in the branded strategy.
Yeah, such a good card.
And when you're able to access it so freely through the Bestial Lubellion as well, it does allow cards such as your Branded Fusion or Branded in Red to increase its chance of resolution and success.
Okay. It's going to resolve.
Oof.
I would have... Couldn't you chain the flowering if you wanted to just at least prevent the beast? Let me check.
It's going into the Guardian Chimera. Lost as 2. Macoria as 3. There's no response due to Lost.
Yeah.
It's going to be a draw 1 as well.
Yeah, I guess he did have the option, but probably didn't feel like that would have been the case. But this is going to be so good.
Yeah, that could have been a very, very interesting play, because not only would you have removed the 2 from your field, obviously the battle phase has already been used, so those 2 monsters would technically be safe from the Guardian Chimera. It then means that it would then mean that the scales will then be sacrificed.
Yeah. And essentially they couldn't go for Chimera regardless, because then they wouldn't have a monster on the field, so you also limit kind of their options. But I mean, it wasn't amazing, but it was probably worth considering.
Yeah, it still presents some advantage to Darwin now on this one, as he's got ideally the strongest monster on the field alongside the Branded Lost. The Macoria being banished was quite helpful in order to kind of grab one from there.
And we go over the Schuberta rather than the flowering, which is interesting, but I mean, we still have so much going for us. Here comes Quem, as we have not normal summon for the turn yet.
Yeah, keep in mind there's Retribution still in the graveyard, so if he's able to get exactly that, Branded Fusion to the grave, we know exactly what's going to be happening here.
Oh. Yeah, just asking if there is any secret effect that could be annoying. Yes, here it comes, Feather Duster clearing those scales.
Retribution to bring back that Branded Fusion. I feel this could be an entire field clear. Branded Fusion works its way into Mirror Jade.
Oh, oh, and the
Ash and the
cold
cool
buy. Yeah,
buy.
we knew about it. We knew about the cool buy. Brief hope, but instantly crushed. And yeah, this... I mean, we've mentioned it. His hand was quite shaky.
Yeah.
But if he were to top deck something good, he had all the protection to, make it work. And I mean, to be fair, he had a lot of possible outs. He just got any card to play with. And yeah, Darwin is making the most out of this.
Yeah, he definitely navigated this very, very well, because being able to start off with the Lubellion, so we got the draw off of the back of the Albion, working its way into the Lubellion. It's kind of checking these certain points for if there is any type of interaction from his opponent, to work his way to be able to get direct access from the Branded Fusion. Who needs free Branded Fusion when you can send it to the graveyard and just add it back to the hand anyway? Yeah. And then being able to feel that comfortable to know he's got that Call by the Grave to protect it from the Ash Blossom if his opponent did hold it as long as they did. Yeah, kind of gives you a little bit more security. And working its way into Lubellion, of course, going into that incredible boss monster in the form of the Mirror Jade.
Yeah, the ad libitum also are drawn makes it even tougher, giving him additional layers of interruption for next turn.
Ooh, very interesting. So we get an Albaz to the field, using the... discarding the Aluba to then contact Fuse. This goes into the Albion. Yeah, complete board clear, complete field clear, and then also having the ability of, if you were to get rid of the Albion, of course, you'll have a bit more of a follow-up that way. But Mirror Jade is still live and active, and we believe Andrew is going off of the top card from his deck and the 2 in his hand, so 3 in total to attempt to break this field that Darwin has been able to produce.
Very nicely executed here by Darwin.
Ooh, good old-fashioned Quinteris. Absolutely love this card. It was one of the first ones that we ended up receiving before the Branded Structure deck. Very, very good to adapt attack stats, which can also mean that your weaker monsters don't get too destroyed. It looks like we're going for Cartesia into the Grand Grignol, and this is obviously going to be able to set out a few more plays. Not to mention we still have Quem in rotation as well on the field, and this is going to be, I think, even without an IDO lock, this is still a very, very powerful field to have to face down.
Have we kept that in? We'll find out, but regardless, yeah, as you've mentioned, the best part is we also set up the Albion, so we are going to get an end face branded in red. And yeah, this is so good by Darwin.
I'm curious if he does have what branded spell he may have left, because he's already used red and he's already used fusion.
He's on double red.
Oh, he's on double red. Okay.
Yeah, he's on 51 cards to actually specify, you know, so he has a little bit more room for all this than usual. And yeah, does set up the second red, and this could be over. Andrew facing an absolutely threatening field. Tried his best to make the Melodious deck work, and is now once more with his back against the wall.
Yeah, and he's not giving up. We're going with the Soprano, being able to kind of put 2 Melodiouses on the board. Does it look like? How are we trying to navigate this? At this point, do we use branded in red to clear them off and not leave there any monsters on the field? I don't feel that there's an attack that's coming through because the Quintarius will deal with that. Looks like we're sending the Rinbrum off of the back of the Mirror Jade. So this is going to obviously non-target banish one of the Melodious, and that looks like Andrew's wrapping it up.